Elway boots and rolls to his right, stops, loads it up, throws down deep in the middle of the field. Rod Smith's got it. Here we go. 30, 20, 15, 10, 5. Rod Smith, Denver, touchdown. Inside the 10, head first. He flies behind the 5-yard line. On to that first down.
And I tell you what, if you want to tell me the 37-year-old man that's going to win this game.
The Broncos have been in 3 overtime games this year. This time it's in the middle of good stick. Got to the 30, to the 20, Thomas to the 10. Denver's going to win the first try of overtime.
In the pocket is Duke. Ball knocked out of his hands. It bounces around. And I think Denver's got it. Von Miller again. Wilson fires. Touchdown. Sutton. His second of the game.
Well, welcome Denver Broncos country. Welcome to the Denver Bronco Roundup. It's Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Of course, where you at? You're right here with us. We appreciate you joining us every single week and jumping in here with all your questions, all your comments. We love it every single week. Rocky Mountain Sports Network is who we're brought to you by. Check out Rocky Mountain Sports Network. They're all over the place. They're on Facebook. They're on YouTube. You could be tuned in from either one of those platforms. Twitter. Check us out. We're on Twitter too. You can see us scrolling down below. You can even find me out there. So without further ado, let's welcome in our regular co-hosts. I've got Mr. Albert Knoppers and Mr. Jody Moncrief. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening. How are you today?
I'm doing all right, man. Doing all right. I think like a lot of Broncos country, I'm maybe a little anxious, a little bit on edge. It seems like this is taking a little bit longer than I anticipated, and I'm ready for things to get moving or better news to be coming our way, man. How's Albert doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm getting ready for some snow, so the temperatures are below freezing. So other than that, we're doing good.
Getting ready for snow, below freezing. Welcome to winter. Sounds like that's been the story of all of us at some point, and certainly the gentleman right down below me, Mr. Jody Moncrief. It seems like every time he comes in, he's like, my hands are frozen. I just got them thawed out from the snowblower. I've gotten 18 inches of snow in the last 24 hours. How's it been, Jody?
This week hasn't been too bad, and not very much snow, so can't complain.
Snow report is okay. How's your week been outside of the weather, man? It's been a week, and hey, for Albert, it's been 2 weeks for that matter, man. We should tune back into Albert after we get done with you and your week. How you doing, buddy? How is the rest of your week outside of the weather?
It's been good, other than sick of listening to this. Is Sean Payton coming? Is Sean Payton not coming? I'm tired of all the leaked lies, and 10 minutes later, that's something different.
Well said.
It's just getting old. Hire somebody, and the longer they wait, I think Payton is who they want. But he carries a lot of baggage that I don't want.
That's true. That's true. Lots to get into regarding all of that. Albert, it's been 2 weeks, so I appreciate you being back on the show, buddy. We missed you, man. All of us missed you, man. Broncos countries have missed you. All of our Denver Bronco Roundup fans have missed you. I'm sure even this Facebook user who's coming in and saying good evening to all of us, he was missing you last week. So I appreciate you being back, buddy.
Yeah, we had a family emergency and that we needed to take care of. So that is part of life. It happens, and hopefully we got it all taken care of, and we will see the better sunshine afterwards. But yeah, I'm looking forward to all the news as well. Sometimes it's very frustrating with all the clickbaits and stuff, but yeah, who knows?
Yeah, who knows is right. I'll tell you, one thing who knows is, oh, hey, now we know exactly what it is. Good evening, it's Sis, Mr. Sis, and thank you for joining in, sir. Appreciate you, man. Always a good friend of the show. And hey, a good friend over at K&K Sports. You can check him out there. Always, doing a little bit of wits and wagers over there too sometimes. Always good to see you over on the K&K show, and always good to see you here, sis. So I appreciate you joining us this evening. So I was going to say the one thing that I don't miss hearing about is, and something I actually saw Albert put on social media actually, and that's Willow Seasonings and Blends, man. Our good sponsor, Willow Seasonings and Blends. Check them out, willowseasonings.com. They got all your barbecue spices. They got all your rubs. They got all your sauces. They're award-winning. They're blue ribbon. I mean, from Kansas City. So we're not talking about like, hey, they won like the I don't know, the Hardin, Montana barbecue bake-off. No, we're talking Kansas City, man. We're talking like the heart of barbecue in this country. One of the hearts. I shouldn't disparage some of those other places in our country. But Albert did a little bit of ribs, if I remember right. Is that correct, Albert?
That is correct. And then I used their seasonings, and boy, did they turn out really good.
They look fantastic, man. Look fantastic. Well, things are certainly cooking in Broncos country. And, man, I'll tell you what, the first thing that was cooking, Jeff Duncan at NOLA.com, I don't know if he's the best source for breaking news, or if he's just a conduit for Sean Payton in order to get some leverage out there in the market. And that's the first thing I want to get to. Jody, you seem to be in tune with a lot of these things. Well, we all do. But Jody, I'll let you jump on this one first. What do you think of Jeff Duncan? He was the one who first reported that we had the second interview scheduled, later retracting, saying we don't have a second interview scheduled with Sean Payton. I don't know. To me, do you find him a reliable source? Where do you sit on Jeff Duncan? And I know that you're sick of all this, so where do you sit on this in general? And then we'll jump over to Albert on the same topic, buddy.
Yeah, because I think Sean Payton is giving him the info, telling him to leak little pieces at a time to stir this drama. If Sean Payton wanted this job, then he would have this job. Sit down and say, I want the Denver job. But now we take an interview with Arizona, and we take interviews with other places. It's, do you want this job or do you not? And if Payton really wanted this job, he could get a hold of Mickey Loomis and tell him, make this happen. You can't leave me with nothing in the cupboard as far as draft picks. So I think it's just a game that he's playing, and the more he plays it, the more I am getting off of the Sean Payton bandwagon. He brings a lot of baggage to Denver, and they're just as – he is a good coach, but he's won one Super Bowl, and there are other coaches I think that can get the best out of this team with the staff they put around him.
Fair enough. Mr. Albert, it's been it's been a couple weeks. We'll give you the big screen. How's that, buddy? Give you the big screen, and same question, man. What do you feel? Again, Jeff Duncan, NOLA.com was the first one to kind of break some news out there, saying that we had the second interview scheduled, later retracted it. For me, he feels again like just a conduit for leverage for Sean Payton. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's the best source of information. But how do you feel about that? And how do you just feel about Sean Payton and all the news that has been swirling around him, really, with even the last 24 hours?
So if it would be that important to the Waltons, they would not go on a hunting trip. That's how I see it. And
let me just, for anybody, especially who's just tuning in audio wise, maybe isn't checking us out video wise. Matt Staffiero is coming in and saying breaking interviews are delayed, Payton and others, due to Rob Walton being on a hunting trip. This is per Jeff Duncan, who has been following the Payton camp. This is the same gentleman who's supposedly has been at the breaking end of all of this Payton news. But go ahead, Albert.
I think that is just bogus. The Waltons, if it is that important to them, they would not go on a hunting trip. They can go on a hunting trip any time of the year. So I think because they are really interested in this team, it looks like, and they are investing a lot of money. and I don't think they will go on a hunting trip because they can get. They are going after a coach. I think the coaches right now is one of the most important businesses that they have. That's what I think.
And I see Matt, and I didn't mean to throw something up on the screen that maybe distracts you a little bit, Albert, but he's in here saying that, Albright has confirmed this as well. He's saying, and of course, he's caught talking about Benjamin Albright and Broncos Insider. I guess this is my thought. As much as Sean Payton's been playing around, it's kind of like, you've been waiting for that person to call, and you've been waiting for that person to call. Maybe it's that girlfriend, or maybe it's that boyfriend who is supposed to call you, or whoever it happens to be. Maybe it's the coach that was supposed to call you. Maybe it was your agent who was supposed to call you, or the other team. And all of a sudden, you've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and finally they call, and you're like, you know what? Should I pick that up, or should I just let that go to voicemail? And if they're out on a hunting trip, this is, I think, my thought of the Waltons just kind of letting it go to voicemail. That's my personal thought. Maybe they're out on a hunting trip, but you know what? They're reachable. If they really wanted to, they would come together. I think this is them playing the other side of this game that Sean Payton's playing. And
so maybe
go ahead, Albert.
Maybe a different thought. What are they hunting for? A different coach?
They're hunting around San Francisco, maybe. Something around those lines.
We don't know.
We don't know. We don't know. This could be. Oh, again, this is because he's putting it at the end. Payton is using this for leverage, and I 100% agree, man. This is. Don't get me wrong. Hey, this is part of the game. This is what you kind of have to play in a little way. You know what I mean? If you want to get the most, you go out and you see multiple teams, right? You interview at multiple teams. You tell everybody, you haven't made up your mind. You have interest, and you could see potential in multiple teams. All these different things keeps the bidding war going, right? There's a lot of different ways that this can be happening, and the leverage that Sis is talking about is absolutely happening as far as I'm concerned from the Payton camp.
What is the most? Is it the most money? What is it? The most power? What is the most?
You tell me, Jody. Your guess is as good as anybody else's. Jody, what is this? Why? Or the other side of it is he doesn't want to come here. And I will say that Colin Cowherd, was saying that Payton was seesawing about working with Russell Wilson. So is that a possibility as well? I'll let you answer the question. Is it leverage? Is it just not lack of interest? What is it? And if it's leverage, what is it for?
Attention, I think.
A kitchen? Oh,
no,
attention.
Attention.
Okay.
I think it's basically look at all these teams want me, and if I'll be back next year if I don't want to take a job, and I'm not really a fan for that. I need somebody that's going to be here and focused and can get the best out of Russ. I'm sick of hearing these reports that anonymous NFL execs are saying he's washed. He's not washed. I mean, 3 of his last 4 games prove that he's not washed. That's what Russ always was. It's funny that they want to bring up, well, players say he was drama this, drama that in Seattle. It's old news. I don't care about the office anymore. There's a lot of stuff that's going to change with this new coach. So it's just talking, just people making noise to make noise to get clicks and likes and views and stuff. And if you think Russ is washed, put your name behind it.
Oh, something to be said about that, man. Hey, if you're going to go out and you're going to speak about a man, and this is something that Jerry Jeudy said actually in a tweet, actually near the end of the season. If you're going to speak about a man, you should know him. You know what I mean? And that's absolutely right, man. If you don't know the man, you shouldn't be talking about him, especially when it comes to his personal life. And the same goes true as far as what you're saying as well. Albert, what is your thoughts? What are your thoughts around this? You know, is it leverage, and if so, for what, or is it just disinterest from Sean Payton to come to the Denver Broncos?
No, I don't think so. He knows how to play the game. We have seen it with Aaron Rodgers. He knew how to play the game. We saw it with Jim Harbaugh showing interest and that kind of stuff, and then they all know how to play the game. So, and I think that's what it is for them as well.
Okay, so it's leverage. And do you think it's leverage for more money per year, longer term contract, more say in the overall, you know, how the Broncos are ran, whether it be more of a GM style of role? You know, what's important to Sean Payton in this leverage?
Maybe
what's number one, I guess you could say, because it could all be important to him. But what do you think is number one?
Maybe just to see what he can get, and it might not even be. He might get somewhere $28 million per year, but he doesn't even want to go there. But he just wants to see. He might want to see, this is what I can get, and so he will use it for later leverage.
I like it, pushing it in all directions. Jody, you know, Albert brought up a good point. Is that what's going on? It's not about any particular type of leverage. It's maybe just about seeing how far you can push each individual team, and then just going after what looks the best from that perspective.
I mean, if you believe reports, Robert Walton is willing to pay $25 million. So, I mean, that puts him well above the highest paid, makes him the highest paid coach in the NFL. So, what are you after? I mean,
maybe he wants that Payton position, or that Payton position removed, or Payton removed from that position, I should say.
Man,
you know, I mean, I'm just speculating.
I just feel that the Saints are asking too much, and there are people in the room that have a little common sense that, yes, Payton is a above average coach, but one, you're going to pay him a lot of money. Two, they are not enamored with what reports are, what his coaching staff is going to be. Three, how settled are they with George Payton? If that's a deal breaker, there might be people behind the scenes saying, then get someone else that can work with Payton, George Payton. So I think that's the big thing. If it's just a money, it's not to me, it's not a money thing, because reports are they've already said 25 million. So I think he just he's just playing a game right now. And if the reports are true that Denver, like I said, is not enamored with what he's proposed as a coaching staff or some of these other things, then move on to somebody that is enamored by it. I think Robert Walton just wants to say, hey, I went and got what was the best out there. And it may not be the best.
It's now spooky time on the Denver Bronco Roundup. Actually, I just need to fix some lighting here, so and I'll be right back. But this does look like it's like I'm going to do this for our Halloween special next year. This is exactly how I'm going to do it. I think it'll be perfect. That being said, I'm going to get to a new commenter coming in from YouTube. Bucket Man Scouting. So Bucket Man Scouting, I appreciate you coming in here. He says, ever since Pat Pullen has passed, the organization hasn't been the same, unfortunately. And that is unfortunately. He says, he goes on, continues, says, under Pat Pullen, we didn't need to bribe coaches to come here. We had an identity from the top down. We talked about this a lot, and the change in the culture, and I think Jody hit on it a little bit, and maybe I'll jump it over to Albert so I can fix some lighting. But just the change in this ownership, I'll tell you one thing. When it comes to the Walton Penner group, and one of the first things that came to mind with the Waltons, I was a big like Shark Tank type of guy. Used to watch a lot of that, and you'd always hear them, hey, getting into Walmart, that's a tough gig. Those guys are business savvy. They take their cut. You're not getting in there for cheap. You know what I mean? They're a tough group to try to make money going into Walmart. These guys are amazing business guys with business minds. And when it comes to Sean Payton, that's something that may help us out in some of what Jody's talking about. We'll have to navigate. But Albert, just talk about what this Walton Penner group will mean to the Denver Broncos moving forward, since we have been in flux since the Bolins have really been in power, and where you think it's going. And Jody, you can jump in if I happen to take an extra second.
So from what I can see is they are now way more invested than what we have seen from Joe Ellis and other people around. Even the bowling kids were not as invested as what I can see from the new owners. If you put in $400,000 just for a new field for one game, because the quality wasn't good enough, I think that says a lot about them. That he will take ownership of a certain hiring because the general manager is not capable of. I think that shows that they are willing to take care of business. And I think, from what I can see, I hope this is going to be a really good relationship between the Broncos and the new owners.
Jody, you have anything to add that I didn't get to hear?
No, I agree with that. I mean, I think that they are taking this serious. Who cares what the media wants or fans want right now? You've ran $1 billion business, and just because you or I are anticipating a guy today or tomorrow, I mean, hire what you think is the best guy. I am just glad that there are other people in the room that are throwing up some red flags with Sean Payton. I mean, if it was Sean Payton and Sean Payton alone, then yeah, he's probably the best coach available, but there's a lot of baggage with him. There's a lot of red flags with what he's going to bring as a staff, and how serious is he with coming here? What's the highest paid coach now? 12, 13, 14 million. You're going to top that by 10 million, and he's on the fence? How serious are you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is this. I think this ownership group, as you guys have kind of hit, are taking the right steps. If you think back to last year, once we got to Hackett, there was other interviews that we had scheduled, and we said, no, Hackett, that's it, we're taking him. And we cut off all our second interviews, and we hired Hackett. It would have been very easy, especially with the Walton Penner group, the pockets that they have. I mean, let's face it, if they would have came in and said, hey, we're going to give you $30 million a year, Sean Payton, he knew he wasn't going to get anything better than that. The money alone would have brought him in here. He would have been blowing away any contract out there in the market. He would have just signed on the dotted line. They had the ability to do so, and they're not doing that. They're taking their time. They're doing their due diligence. Other than I guess a hunting trip, there hasn't been a whole lot of leaked about what the Walton Penner Group's ideas and thoughts are about. And if it wasn't for Benjamin Albright, again, I guess kind of looping back to the beginning of our show, I guess I don't trust Jeff Duncan. I think he's just, again, going to be a leverage point, and that's what I'm going to expect. You guys can take him at your word if you want. I'm certainly not trying to disparage anybody in the media, and certainly there's going to have to be people out there that that get the word of the player or the coach or whoever out there, and that could be all that he's doing. So I'm going to get to a few other people. We have a new gentleman, Clayton Heron. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Saying evening, guys. Appreciate you coming in. And then Bucket Man Scouting. I appreciate you jumping in here as well. Having a lot to say. He said letting a guy like Adam Peters go to the 49ers, I think, was a big loss. Letting Elway have total control in the organization, I think, hampered some personnel decisions that set this team back. If you go back to those Ellis and Elway days, I think that's the biggest thing. There there was people that reportedly that John Elway was on board with, aka bringing back a Mike Shanahan or bringing in a Kyle Shanahan, or even players, if I remember correctly, that he was on board with bringing in that Ellis was not on board with, and so that room never worked out. And getting back to what you were saying, bucket man scouting, since that ownership of Bolin was gone, we were in flux. I'm excited though of what we're going to see going forward. Let's look to the future, bud. Let's look to the future. Speaking of looking to the future, we might have to look to the future without Sean Payton. Jody's going to be very excited about that because he came on the show saying, I'm sick and tired of all the news swirling about Sean Payton. So I'm going to go to him first. I'm going to say, Jody, Sean Payton's off the table. Where are you going next? And I also want to get, where do you think we go next? Because those could be two different things. So where do you think we go next? Where would you like us to go next as far as a head coaching candidate for the Denver Broncos?
I think I have it down to 3 guys now, and this is really different than my list last week. I think it's David Shaw or Dan Quinn. I've still been a fan of him, or D'Amico Ryans.
Very good.
It's one of those 3. The other guys don't really. I'd probably be more on Caldwell if it wasn't for his age. I mean, he's almost 70 years old. How long is he really going to be here?
It's fair. It's fair. I mean,
but I think we
don't have any age discrimination within the Denver Bronco Roundup. Especially with a beard like this. We can't. But go ahead.
But those guys, it's more about who they put around them, what staff they build. And that's why I'm kind of, besides the games, that's why I've been souring on Payton. I'm not really, if he's really like Sis asked, is Vic Fangio make or break? Maybe. But there's no way I'm bringing Vic back here 1 year removed from him being the head coach here. And guys on defense didn't respect whatever it was, and now he's your boss again. I don't see how that's not going to go over well. I don't like some of his options at offensive coordinator, and reports are that there are other people in the room that are throwing red flags to that. So, which is good. Shaw. Probably those are my 3: Shaw, Quinn, or D'Amico Ryans.
Shaw, Quinn, and D'Amico Ryans. Yeah, I did miss out from Sin. It says he asked, "Is the sticking point Payton wants Fangio as a DC?" I can say if. It would. I think it would bring a ton of turmoil, Sis. It would bring a ton of turmoil to that team that is not necessary, especially to the side of the ball that is, our better side of the ball. If we're going to look at, let's face it, if there's one side of the Denver Broncos that looked fantastic last year on the field, at least at times, it wasn't the offense, it was the defense. So to bring back Vic Fangio, a gentleman that didn't get along with a lot of the guys, including possibly not now. Justin Simmons would never come out and say a foul or a cross word about anybody. It's just the gentleman that he is. That's a guy who went through the Vic Fangio years for sure. For sure. Does he feel really great about Vic Fangio coming back? I don't know if he does. And if that's the case, is that really what you want to put into the mix? I would say if Sean Payton is hell bent on Vic Fangio being his DC, it's maybe one of the reasons, as Jody was talking about, there's questions about his staff and people are asking, or at least posing questions and putting it out there and slowing down the process, taking that pause, as we all heard. So Kenny jumped in and said, excuse me, hey guys, night at work, what's the topic? Kenny, well, our big topic, of course, Kenny, is just who is our new head coach going to be. It's everything that's been swirling today. Sean Payton's got his second interview scheduled. He's coming in Wednesday night. Could be Wednesday night interview. Could be Thursday night. No, he's not scheduled. No, he's not coming in. Now I guess the Walton Penner groups are out on a hunting trip. And we're looking at all the other options. And I want to get to Albert's other options. Albert, Sean Payton, for whatever reason, is not going to be the Denver Broncos head coach. Jody gave me 3, but who's your choice for head coach? And is it the same as what you think is going to happen if Sean Payton doesn't become our head coach and the Denver Broncos hire someone
Yeah.
out there?
So I would be interested in the defensive coach of the Niners. I think he's doing a fantastic job.
D'Amico Ryans, yep.
D'Amico Ryans, and then we have also the really underdog that we have seen 2 games this season as an interim coach. He might be a player as well, and I don't think I would not mind to see him another year as being a head coach and see what it brings to us. Because what he did in
Jerry
2 weeks,
Rosberg in the house.
what he did in 2 weeks, what Hackett could not do over 15 games, I think that was something amazing.
15 games, preseason, off-season.
Preseason, yeah. So the Rosberg did, from what I saw, a tremendous job. He had the team fired up, and he was probably the most animated coach we have seen in the last 6 years. He had more energy in one game than the last 6 years of the other head coaches. So it was really nice to see.
It was always tough to watch the passion from some of our coaches. Vance Joseph was always a good one to see the passion of, the disgusted clipboard go down to the side. That's about the amount of passion you get from a VJ. So you kind of gave me a couple ideas as far as D'Amico Ryans, Jerry Rosberg. Those are ideas, I take it, that you really like as maybe a head coach for the Denver Broncos. Do you think either one of those candidates are truly, if you had to put money down on it, the head coach that gets hired if Sean Payton is not available?
I don't know, but I would like to see it. I don't know if they will get it. It's probably going to be more like a Dan Quinn maybe, or what is the other? Frank Reich. That might be a candidate. Something like that.
Yeah, obviously Dan Quinn, big name that's out there as well. The funny thing is that as you're answering the question, you kind of brought me back to, Sis a couple of weeks ago when he said, this is all just speculation, guys. It is all just speculation. It's been swirling. You even talked about a little bit of news that was swirling, Albert, and the fact that there's a possibility that Jerry Rosberg comes back. It's just, every possibility is out there. I think we have to look at someone obviously like a Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn is been proven, I guess you could say. It really, if you look at what he was able to do in the grand scheme of his career.
Matt will tell you that's not true.
Well, I understand. Matt is not a Dan Quinn fan, and he's as much as he was a Drew Lock hater, it'd be really fantastic to have Dan Quinn in the house as our head coach, because that would bring back memories of some of the dialogue me and him used to have on things like that. So, but really, I mean, you look at what he was able to do, stemming all the way from Seattle. Really, hey, you might talk about one of the biggest collapses in Super Bowl history, but how many Super Bowls have the Denver Broncos been to in recent years? I mean, talk about just getting there in general. I mean, it had to happen. He put together a great staff. I know that he wasn't able to keep them and or rebuild them, or maybe he brought in the wrong guy to replace one of the best guys out there as far as an offensive mind was concerned. But then you look at what he goes and he does in Dallas. And really, if you looked at when Dan Quinn first got there, a lot of people were wondering, could he make the transition, especially as bad as that Dallas defense was playing? Well, you look back to this last year, and the Dallas defense was playing lights out, and he's done a fantastic job there. So he's elevated himself back into that conversation. I'm going to just get to Bucket Man real quick. This is a name that was floated out there early. I wish that he got interviewed. Certainly would like to see him integrated back into whatever staff is brought in under whichever head coach, I should say. Mike Munchak would be great. Bucket Man Scouting says he's a line center coach, something that we obviously need. and saw some of our best gains as far as offensive line was concerned when Mike Munchak was in the house. So, Albert, you wanted to join in and jump in, and then I certainly should go around the horn, see if Jody wants to have any 2 words as well.
You said something about how many games have the Broncos been in the Super Bowl. A better question would have been how many playoff games have they played in the last 6 years?
Yeah. I mean, playoff games, winning records. I mean, anything's been tough to come by as of lately.
None of that in the last 6 years. We did not have a winning season since the Super Bowl.
Oh, I don't want to even think about it, Albert. Don't make me pull up stats of last time that we were. We all know it's been a rough go. So. I did get, I don't know if you guys noticed, a little new part of my backdrop over here. Got my little Super Bowl 50 champions over here. I don't know if you can check that out. Little banner, little addition to the backdrop. So always trying to add a new piece. Jody, this is one question that I guess I have. It's one thing that I've been a little bit concerned about, because a couple of the top candidates that might be after Sean Payton are Dan Quinn and D'Amico Ryans. And the reason I'm concerned about that is both of those gentlemen run a 4-3 defense, and we're currently in a 3-4 system. So we're talking about completely revamp. If we're going to go with their schemes, we're talking about revamping a defensive line. At the same time, our biggest need is not revamping our defensive line right now. It's fixing an offensive line, and we don't have a whole lot of picks and money to go out there and fix it all. Is that a concern for you if a Dan Quinn or a D'Amico Ryans comes in as head coach? Is maybe the turbulence or the amount of time it takes to get everything moving in the right direction? Or do you think they're smart enough to keep the scheme that we currently have and kind of adapt it themselves?
I think if it's a Dan Quinn, I think he would adapt. I mean, he runs a variation of both. If it is D'Amico Ryans, I mean, he is a true 4-3 guy, but he has guys that, I mean, DJ Jones played in that system last year coming over.
Baron Browning would be a good transition guy.
Randy Gregory, I mean, coming from Dallas, he knows Quinn's system. He's played with his hand in the ground, so I think it's right. I don't think it would be a huge thing. Those 2 guys.
Yeah, definitely need to get a nose tackle in if we're going to have, a good 4-3 system, though.
I think that's where DJ Jones can flourish. I mean, he played in this system in San Francisco, so
I would love that. Maybe if D'Amico gets in here, DJ Jones comes back. I know DJ Jones didn't sound the happiest about his year here in Broncos country, and I don't know if you caught any of that. Albert, your thoughts around that? Do you have any concerns about coach coming in here and maybe not fitting the system? We actually had, I believe, Bucket Man coming in here actually at one point and say something to that effect as well. I'll see if I can find it, but go ahead and go.
I think our players are very adaptable. You have seen it with Browning, and we have seen it with other players. And I don't think it will be too big of an upset for them. Guess what? It is their job. Adapt. And they're getting paid anywhere from $200,000 to several millions of dollars a year. And okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. Play it. Russell Wilson tried it. It just didn't work for him, but here we go. But it is their job.
There's something to be said about that. I mean, I think it's really difficult. Baron Browning is one of those guys that everyone was speculating. Could he make the jump, from one position to another, and did a fantastic job. Not every guy is capable of doing that. Not every guy that has his hand in the ground, and we've seen this multiple times, all of a sudden he's an outside linebacker that's in coverage on tight ends and sometimes wide receivers. Well, that's a huge transition if all you've ever done is had your hand in the ground and you're going after the quarterback. Some guys can make that transition, some guys can't. And, those are some of the things that you see whether it be the change in the linebackers or the change in those in that front that you're putting on in a 3-4 versus a 4-3, it just changes. It's different. So the question that I saw that Bucket Man scouting, he said the player personnel for the Broncos don't fit Sean Payton's system that he runs, and he's talking obviously more offensive. That's one thing that I hadn't really looked into as far as their scheme. I know from an offensive line front that is certainly the case. I haven't looked at as far as I guess their what's that their I'm lost. Wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, stuff like that. They're those type of positions.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, the
I was going to
Saints.
say, Jody, do you have anything to say on it? Go ahead, buddy.
Denver has playmakers like the Saints did. Do they have a Michael Thomas in his prime? No, probably not. But they got an explosive guy in Jerry Jeudy. They got playmakers. They got tight ends. Like you said, the O-line, no. But we all know that this is getting revamped. A minimum of 3 new starters on this O-line next year. So, and running backs. I mean, Latavius Murray was with the Saints. That's a Sean Payton guy. So I don't know that I totally agree with that, but I think it's more on the defensive side of the ball.
I'm going to read this comment. Maybe you can respond to this, and I'll let Albert, too, just to anybody who's maybe listening in. Bucket Man Scouting again. He's been owning our message board. Everybody feels like they can jump in, ask us any questions. But he says, are you going to run a West Coast run scheme, a West Coast power run scheme, or run spread concepts? You need to get player personnel that fit the systems. Can you speak to a little bit of that, Jody? Do you feel like
West Coast? I mean, you got to run what fits Russ. I mean,
thank you.
That's pretty simple. You could do. You're going to have other things. I think you might see some RPO. They're going to try to. This Russ sitting back in the pocket and Drew Brees, we seen it. It didn't work, and Russ knows that. Russ, for whatever you want to think of Russ, he's not stupid. And you can say, well, if I run, I'm not going to play 10 more years. If you play like that again, you won't play 10 more years. So you have to, really, you've got to, honestly, you've got to do what works for Russ. And, just take someone like Justin on. He didn't so much change all the plays themselves, but he ran things that made Russ comfortable. Bootlegs, getting him outside the pocket. And you've seen that in those last 3 games. Russ is not a sit in the pocket and pick you apart. Russ is kind of like run around and wait till guys get open and maneuver in different things. And that's just what he's been his whole career. So if Sean Payton is going to try to come in here or think he's going to come in here and run this spread offense, and that isn't going to work. There's no way that anyone can think that after seeing what we did this year.
Yeah, I would have to agree, man. Albert, do you have any 2 cents on this? And then I'll jump in.
What Russell can do now by himself, Peyton needed with the Saints with 2 quarterbacks. And then he mixed it up with 2 different quarterbacks so that he could have them more valuable player. And he now will have it in just 1 player. I think that's where the big difference is.
Yeah, you did see that down the stretch where they were using Taysom Hill in there, to kind of substitute for Drew Brees. Sometimes, oddly, I would say, I guess that's the best way to put it. I wouldn't always agree with sometimes the way they were doing it. But, Bucket Man, I guess the way I would put it, if I was going to go in there, if I was the head coach, I think it's going to be a longer transition to try to get everything fixed. I don't think that I've been pushing. I think we're going to expect to see Lloyd Cushenberry back at center next year. That's my expectation. And the reason being is because I don't think you can go out there and get a left guard. Make sure I got that. Left guard, center, right tackle, all replaced. First string go out. You're going to have to. One of these guys are going to have to come through the draft. It is so tough to try to get a center as a free agent, and you're going to pay through the nose to get a great center as a free agent. So I think you have to go out there and you have to get him in the draft. Well, is that guy going to be able to come in there and be better than Lloyd Cushenberry? You're already picking at best at the end of the first round. You're not going to get top tier talent. He's going to take a year to get developed. So along this line, I think we're going to have to see some of that. I think you're going to see some of these guys come back on contracts and rotate in. That being said, I think we're set up for a wide zone scheme still. I think that we can convert to a power scheme, but I think at the same time, I'm in agreement with Jody. It's going to be a West Coast system because that's what Russell Wilson is going to thrive in. If you're just going to go back there and put him in the pocket and just have him stand there and sit like Drew Brees, then you better have a Drew Brees offensive line like Drew Brees had when he was going to Super Bowl runs. The type of offensive line that was dominant, had multiple Pro Bowlers, was one of the best offensive lines in the league at the time. If you're going to have that and you can just clear lanes for your quarterback to see and throw through, then no problem. Yeah, but we are nowhere close to that. It needs to be a West Coast system. Maybe someday he can transition to that, but we're in no place to be in doing.
And one thing that I think was really overlooked is when Rosberg put Otten as the play caller, he did that because he wanted Kubiak down there coaching Russ. And
Correct.
So all those games that Kubiak was calling the plays, Russ really never had a quarterback coach down there. He didn't have a coach down there. Otten was not coaching him. And he had that with Kubiak, who could sit there and focus just on that. He didn't have that. And that was big. Did Otten dumb down or whatever you want to say the offense and run things that worked well for Russ? Yeah. And Russ ran them well. So I don't care about how you want to say, well, he's a one read. We knew that. Russ was never a 330 yards, 45 for 48 and 4 touchdowns. That was never Russ. He was never that.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, and that's a good point because, Drew Brees in San Diego was it Drew Brees in San Diego and just a better version of that once he got down to New Orleans. So, Albert, anything you have to say on that at all? If not, I was going to get to one other comment. Go ahead.
I just don't think that they dumbed down the offense or simplified it. They made the offense fit the system that was fitting for Russell Wilson, and that is what happened. They didn't simplify it. They adjusted it to a system that Wilson could play in, and I think that's more accurate.
I would here I'll make it easy for you guys. I'd say it's a little bit of both. I think they dumbed it down, and they made it a system that could fit Russell Wilson. They did it both in the same. And dumbing down a system, people get all caught up in, oh boy, that's a simple system. Even at one of our games, I believe it was Jacksonville, they're like, oh, they're running a high school or a college style of or high school style of offense. I can tell you what, if you go out there and you can run the most basic offense, and you can go ahead and you can get the yards and you can put points on the board, so be it. I don't understand why it has to be the most, out of crazy, out of your mind, Kyle Shanahan, Andy Reid, whatever the Dallas Cowboys were doing with Ezekiel Elliott being the center. Again, it doesn't need to be these far out concepts. If you can line up and you can run the ball and run it effectively, if you can get, as Bucketman was pointing out, if you can get just those passes, short, quick passes, and create a little creative running game and make that happen, then hey, that's all you need. Make that happen. I think the biggest thing is you need to have it fit your personnel. So
see, what I don't understand, you can say that you have to dumb it down for Wilson. How come no one says anything when Patrick Mahomes and everyone admitted he couldn't read a defense his first year or second year, threw 50 touchdowns and won an MVP? You don't think Andy Reid was dumbing down the offense because he couldn't read defense?
100%.
If Russell Wilson is putting up numbers like he did against San Diego, 3 touchdowns, almost 300 yards passing, and putting up 27 points, I don't really care if you want to say you were dumbing down the offense.
So
Cool.
Just really quick, Albert, and then I'll let you jump in. My biggest thing is it's just a reset. I mean, what were you expecting, Rosberg to do? Come in there and say, no, I'm going to draw up all these crazy plays that no one's ever heard of, and you'll have to learn this whole new crazy system? Of course, he goes in there, he's like, guys, you know what you really need to do? And he said, there's a certain way I want to play football. There's a certain way I think football should be played. It's a basic style of football, and that's what he put in there. It was just a reset because you certainly don't need any crazy concepts. Albert, go ahead.
And if I'm correct, isn't that what the Eagles did? Back to basics? And where did he end up now? Oh, wow, they are running for the NFC title.
Yeah, they claim that that's one of the simplest offenses that they're running for Hurts.
100%.
I'll run that all day if you're putting 31 up. I don't care.
I'll take it. Yeah, I'll take that dumbed down system that Sirianni. Is that right? Yeah, I think so.
Sirianni.
Sorry, I'm like getting my sauces all mixed in.
But there's a lot of things if you take Kubiak for example, that is nowhere close when he took over play calling, running his offense.
Correct.
He couldn't install his type of offense and stuff. I mean, you can't learn a new playbook in the middle of the season. I mean, they could do tweaks and some little things, but this is what was installed and it was going to get ran. And just like Otten, he basically had to dumb it down to, how do you want to say, 10, 15 plays, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it might look like you're not running anything, but there was no time it was what it was.
That brings me back. I just want to tell this story really quick. I saw like a 30 for 30, I believe it was ESPN, and they were talking to Bill Parcells about Sean Payton, as Sean Payton was underneath Bill Parcells. And he goes, Sean Payton was a fantastic coach. He'd come in there. He says the downside is he had a ton of ideas. Like he would come in with like 40, 45 plays. And he goes, I'd turn to Sean Payton and I'd say, Sean, do you think all those plays are good? And he goes, oh yeah, man, these are fantastic plays, great plays. He's like, good. He's like, do you think we'll get to them all twice in a game? He's like, I had to read it into him. He's like, sometimes it's better to have 15 plays, 20 plays, and if you can get to them all twice because they were such a good play the first time, you can play them again the second time and get the same results. That's better, and I can teach my guys those 20 plays rather than 45 plays. Sometimes it's all about just kind of getting back to the basics, making it simple, getting to those 15 plays like Jody was saying, and being effective on the field.
At the end of the day, if you're scoring 27, 30 points, I don't really care if you're lining up and you're telling everyone I'm running up the middle, stop me, and you score. Who cares?
Yeah.
If you're scoring, you're scoring.
If the Broncos had scored 21 points each game, we would have been in the playoffs.
Of course.
21 points.
Yeah. I think it was even lower, wasn't it? 18 even?
Yeah, 18, yeah.
Yeah.
Hackett's gone, so it doesn't really matter now, but no one wants to – what we see in week 1 to the rest of the games, whether that was Hackett or Russ, it ultimately goes back to Hackett because he allowed it to happen. He's the boss, and he allowed it to happen, and he was stubborn and didn't change it. And you can see it in a lot of places. This is my one-time shot. I'm going to run what got me here, and I'm going to prove that it works. And people are afraid to change what got them to where they are. And the Eagles are a perfect example. When you change because it's not working, look what happens.
Yeah. 100%, man. 100%. Jody, I'll keep you on the screen. We're going to wrap up here. We're not going to keep everyone like for 2 hours like we've done in the past. So we'll try to get just to a few more topics here really quick. Really, last thing on the Broncos, we'll see free agents come in. Unfortunately, we'll see Broncos leave the facility. A few names that you think that might be leaving us, whether it breaks your heart or not. and maybe a name or two that you'd like to see brought in if you have it already on your radar. I know this is kind of we didn't prepare for this, so this is right off the cuff. So, any thoughts around that?
Ones that I think are probably gone. Kareem Jackson, unless he comes back on a vet minimum or huge pay cut.
Friendly deal.
Dalton Reisner, I think, is gone. I will disagree a little bit with you. Cush might be here, but I don't think Cush is starting next year.
Okay.
I think Ronald Darby, unless he restructures. I mean, he's $10 million underwater, and I was really happy with what we've seen from Davari Mathis. Maybe Graham Glasgow, he's probably gone.
Wow. Okay.
And Bowles, maybe Bowles is kind of my wild card. I mean, he's $10 million under the cap or underwater, so he's gonna have to redo his deal or something. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Sources are saying he's not really excited about redoing his deal, so I can understand that.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, unless they trade this first round pick to Payton. I wouldn't be surprised to see four new starters on this line.
Okay. Before you maybe jump into maybe who you maybe want to bring in, just wanted to bring Albert in. What did you think of Jody's list? We actually talked a little bit about this last week, and anybody else that you want to add in there, or any other thoughts around it, buddy?
I definitely think that Billy Turn, Tom Compton are gone.
Yep.
We might see. Good grief, I know his name, but the wide receiver Sutton might be gone, and that would be, in a way, I think that would be a pity. Kareem Jackson, I definitely agree with that. I don't want to see Cushenberry anymore, unless he really steps it up again, because he was probably the weakest link of the entire O-line. And that's pretty much it.
I mean, something was up there because the reports are he was healthy for a while and they never activated him or anything. So, that was even, I mean, Rosberg made decisions. I mean, he benched Montel Washington right away.
Yeah.
And Graham Glasgow, to be honest, he had a lot of holding penalties, a lot of false start holding penalties. So, I mean, if they were going to make the change, they could have easily went back to him. So,
yeah, I agree. I guess what I thought, he had potential. I thought he was. I think he had the potential of being a cornerstone. And once Munchak left, and underneath this offensive scheme that Hackett brought in, I mean, I'll agree with you. He was drowning out there, man. He was not in a good position. Him, much like Albert O, were healthy scratches, it sounds. They put him on IR when he didn't need to be on IR, but they needed the spots for other positions, as he expressed. So I just don't know if we can make all these changes. I mean, again, you don't want Glasgow to come back, you don't want Reisner to come back, you don't want obviously Cushenberry to come back. As Albert pointed out, you're not bringing back Billy Turner. You're not bringing back Compton. There's just a lot of positions that all of a sudden you're like, just along that offensive line, that you're just trying to plug and play and say, all these guys are better than who we're letting go. So when it comes to guys like Reisner, who's questionable, might have a better market than you think. Glasgow, that really should only have a year or two left, maybe at best, and then Lloyd Cushenberry, who's young and might have a potential of actually working back into form. I like Lloyd Cushenberry of those three, and he's on the cheapest contract.
I mean, my biggest what I don't get, or my biggest thing is they started Luke Wattenberg at left guard. They could easily move Glasgow to guard. He played guard, and put Cushenberry back at center. Wattenberg is a center. They could have put Cushenberry there. They didn't. So, and I can't think of the other guy behind Wattenberg. I mean, they had other guys there that were well below the depth chart that they could have activated him and played him, and they chose not to. So
Yeah.
that says something to me. I mean, even when Rosberg took over, there were 2 games and he was making changes left and right. That
You'd have to activate a guy off of IR with 2 games. I don't know.
right.
If necessarily
I mean, he was activated or they claim or reports where he was healthy for a while. So
he was healthy, but he was on IR. I mean, you'd have
But
to
that's what I
literally
mean.
activate him off of IR. So,
well, because he was only on, I think he only went on the short term, so they could have activated him way earlier. So
no, I'm just saying at the time that Jerry Rosberg comes in, right? All of a sudden, Jerry Rosberg comes in. He only has a couple of games left.
Right.
You're going to activate a guy off of IR who hasn't played like all year long, and you're going to put him in the lineup for what? You know what I mean? Unfortunately, I think his season was already packed up at that point, regardless of the coach. Not an easy position to just go, hey, let's just switch this up. You know, it's different if you're talking about a returner.
See, and that's why I've been like 50-50 on Bulls, because if you trade this pick for Payton, now you got 4 offensive linemen. I mean, you're basically drafting the whole offensive line. You don't have a second-round pick, and your first pick is in the 3rd round this year. You're not.
That's what
how are you going to fix it? That's why I think if Payton is the guy, Bulls is back. If he's not, it's 50-50 for me. I mean, you can go in free agency and get 1 or 2 guys.
You can get 1 or 2 guys.
And then in the draft, I think you can pick up. This draft is deep at guard. There's some other things you can do. So
deep at guard, not a center. I just want to get to a couple of people because we do have Kenny coming in saying, what's up? Oh, I'm sorry. Look at that. Kurt coming in saying, what's up? It's Kurt. He also jumps in with his actual Facebook profile here in a little bit, but I'm going to just go right down the list because Kenny came to it. He says 2 names at running back not named: Tony Pollard, Rashad Penny, and Boston Scott. Tony Pollard was definitely high up on the list. I actually think we might even mention that this show, but boy, an injury certainly puts him in doubt going forward for a lot of people. Not necessarily what I would like to see, as we have another guy coming back off of an injury.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a tough one for me. 2 in running backs coming off an injury?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, up until this last game, we were right there with you, Kenny, right there with you. But before I get to all of this, since I brought up Kurt and now I brought up Kenny, we already talked about Sis a little bit earlier, but this is talk about the K&K show. You wonder where it comes from. We got Kurt and Kenny both chiming in. Appreciate you guys. K&K show, they're on, Wednesday nights, Thursday nights? Wednesday night with their K&K show. Check them out. Thursday night with their Wits and Wagers. Gentlemen, if you definitely want to jump in and drop times in there, that's one thing that, Kenny's really good at. Keith's not so great. I always joked if I ever joined the K&K show, it would be the KKK show. It might get some different viewers, but that's very different. That's a different topic altogether. Albert, your thoughts. Rashad Penny, Boston Scott, Tony Pollard. We obviously would like to add a running back to this room. It may not be Chase Edmonds. We talked about Latavius Murray already. Love to bring in one more guy, especially if it's a dynamic guy. We were talking about Saquon Barkley a little bit earlier. Do you want to talk about that right here, buddy? Go ahead and talk.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for the Giants to keep both. What's his name again?
Daniel
Jones, Daniel Jones, and Saquon. And so the rumors have spread that Saquon could be the number 3 for the Broncos. Or his numbers are number 3 in row. But I think that would be way too much. We already have a really good one, but I wouldn't mind to see a Rashad Penny. Have them come back and run for Russell. That is a connection that worked in the past.
Bringing the boys back together. Jody, what are your thoughts that Kenny has on those 3 names? You already kind of gave me your shrug on Tony Pollard, but talk about it, bud.
Well, I'm a big fan of Tony Pollard. I just think that it might go down a little bit now with the injury, but I think he's going to get paid big. And Denver has a lot of other needs to fill. and I'm kind of whatever on the other two. If it were me, I'd probably just bring back what you have now, the three. You can roll with Murray and Edmonds until you find out if Javonte Williams is, because he's not going to be ready week one. So you're going to have. I think you can roll with that for a couple weeks until you see or know more.
Yeah.
Draft someone maybe later in the rounds. But I liked what I seen from Chase Edmonds, especially the last game. Big threat out of the backfield. And Murray, I mean, he's not going to break off 20-yard runs, but he is going to get you 3, 4, 5 yards every run. So,
Yeah,
What
and
you need.
and from what I heard from the injury of Tony Pollard, he might not even be playing at all next year. So it was that severe.
Oh, wow. I heard it was a fracture at first, but I certainly haven't been keeping up on the Pollard news. I appreciate you jumping in there. I'll try to get some confirmed news, obviously.
and whatever we
hopefully
do
that's
on the
not
O
case.
line changes all this. I mean, you go out and you fix this O line big time. I mean, you don't need to go spend $30 million on it or $20 million on a Saquon Barkley or somebody.
All right, Kurt's coming in here, and I'm going to do my for anybody who hasn't checked out the K&K show. I'm going to do this on the fly, but I'm going to try to do my best Kurt Valente impression as we do this. Line stinks. They are who they are. They gotta get developed into anything better. Get them out of here. Replace them right now. So, usually screaming in the microphone, something like that. I don't think I got the accent quite right, but Kurt is a passionate guy over there on the K&K show. Love him. He says Casey's line stunk in the Super Bowl versus Tampa Bay. They completely got a different O-line the next year. He says, I'll keep Bulls and Miners. Bye-bye to everyone else. Hey, man, I hear you. One thing that I got to say, Kurt, is you had Andy Reid, who everyone wants to come play for. You have Patrick Mahomes, that everyone would like to come play for. You have Travis Kelce, everyone would like to come play for. I mean, there was a lot of things that, that was already going for this organization. Needless to say, how many AFC West championships have they won consecutively? How many Super Bowls have they been? How many playoff runs have they been in? Hey, everyone wants to come play, and we saw that with Peyton Manning. People will come to play for a winning organization, and when you're not a winning organization, you got to talk them into it, and talking them into it usually means by paying them, and when you have to pay everyone a little bit extra, guess what? It doesn't go as far. It just doesn't go as far. So we already got $250 million on the hook for our quarterback. It's going to be tougher to try to put things around. Your best situations are always if you can get those rookie QBs. And I know Patrick Mahomes doesn't fall into that, but neither did Peyton Manning. I think they're kind of in similar situations as far as the talent they bring in around them. Anything to add to that? I can go to Albert first. I'm sorry.
No, I totally agree. It makes it much easier to play for a winning team than if you're on the losing end. But it also might be a good argument for a player. Hey, I can bring this to the table. You have not had that for a while, so it also works the opposite way.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, when you bring in good talent or decent talent, you can also get them starting positions right off the bat, and they're not competing. I want to switch gears. We're going to wrap this up kind of as quickly as possible. Favorite games of the last weekend, Jody. What did you see out there that you really liked?
Really, probably the only good game I thought of the weekend was Dallas and San Francisco. I thought it was a good defensive battle. Came down to the end. Other than that, the others were kind of boring. I mean, Cincinnati put it to Buffalo. Mm-hmm. Philly really put it to the Giants. And they probably have a huge decision to make now. Is Daniel Jones a $30-40 million quarterback? I mean, they got big questions there. But the games this week I think are going to be good. I think Philly and San Francisco is going to be a heck of a game.
Yes.
And I think Kansas or Patrick Mahomes, I think he's a little – I mean, he can say whatever he wants, but that's a high ankle sprain that sits most guys 4, 5, 6 weeks. So Uh, but I also watched Chad Henne come in and drive him 98 yards right off the bench cold. So,
Again.
I mean, when your system works, I guess.
Yep. Jody giving a little bit of chuckle, I'm sure, to this one. Here's what I saw. This is Kurt Valente coming in. Here's what I saw. Dak, a waste of $45 million. And Giants, please, please, please don't play Daniel Jones. That money, a waste. Albert, games that you liked off this last weekend and games you like seeing going forward?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Niners game when first the Cowboys. It could have gone both ways, and yeah, the Niners just were a little bit more, adaptive. Let's call it that way. And the game that I'm looking forward is the Bengals versus the Chiefs, and I hope the Bengals will give the Chiefs a big defeat.
Yeah. For me, kind of going off script, maybe I just like the offense, but I've been a Hurts fan for years and years and years, man. I thought he got a kind of a raw deal when he wasn't the Alabama quarterback and left there, and I've been really a fan of him and his work ethic. So to watch Philadelphia and see what they were able to do, just genius in the scheme that they put together. We were talking about it earlier. It may be a basic and simple scheme, but they run it to perfection, and really just a fun offense to watch. And on that other side, I'll be the first to admit I was the guy who got on preseason and said the team that I thought was going to take a downturn this year, the team that I didn't think were going to live up to the expectations, especially from the year prior, was the Cincinnati Bengals, and I was wrong. I'm 100% wrong. To watch Joe Burrow go out there from the drop of the hat, from the kickoff, gets the ball and just goes right down the field, scores a touchdown.
He's the real deal.
He is the real deal, is right, Jody, man.
3 starting offensive linemen out of the game, and Buffalo couldn't get pressure.
I thought with Kapka out of the game, that would be the breaking point for that offense. We were talking about an all-pro offensive lineman.
He had backup, both tackles backups.
Yeah, exactly, and just was surgical, just surgical against the Buffalo Bills. And I know the Buffalo Bills weren't 100% up to par either. I think Von Miller being out there would have made a big difference for them as well. But man, it was
Buffalo has a lot of holes when you watch them. I mean, it's almost like they just say hop on Allen's back, and if he's not Superman, it's not a good day.
It's been that way a little bit. I got to get in here. Kenny's coming in here saying I'm banning the Denver Bronco Roundup if you said the Eagle Giants. And he's laughing at us. To be 100% honest, I was really pulling for your guys' Giants, even though I'm an Eagles fan. What a hats off year. It literally flipped from everyone's script, Broncos to Giants, in my opinion. If you looked at the very beginning of the season, everyone was doubting the Giants and what they could do, and they're not going to make a playoff run, and they'd be happy to get to a 500 type of season, and Daniel Jones is definitely not the answer, and it's all going to prove itself out. Well, all that changed around, and on the other side, you had everyone talking about the Denver Broncos possibly being a Super Bowl favorite, and they were the ones that kind of lived in the cellar. So hats off to your New York Giants, man. I know they didn't make it as far as all Giants fans would have wanted, but certainly a lot further than most expected at the very beginning of the year. So
you guys won a playoff game with a first-year head coach. I mean,
yeah,
with Daniel Jones at quarterback.
Daniel Jones, and we'll have to get into those, coach of the year type of topics, but that's one, Brian Daboll, that will have to be at the top of that list. I know everyone's not a big a Vikings fan, but now I'm blanking the name for the head coach. Kevin O'Connell, yeah, one of my favorites at one point for Broncos head coach, but he has to be in the mix as well. So
Zach Taylor too.
Zach Taylor has had a fantastic year, buddy. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I still remember 2 years ago he was on the hot seat. Kenny put it all together. They went out, they got Travis Etienne, and there was a lot of things that were happening around that organization. They weren't sure if he was going to be the guy, and then now look at it. They wouldn't get rid of him if their life depended on it. So I'm sorry, I put you up on the screen like you were going to say a little bit more, buddy, but I think that's
Yeah,
about
there's one more person that I need to see going.
it. Okay.
Landau.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear those changes. That's one of the things that ownership came out right after they let go of Hackett. They came out and they were talking about some of the changes that they would have to be making in the future, and one of the ones they weren't going to be waiting on was is the strength and conditioning that they were already looking into. It'll be really interesting to see what goes forward, and as far as that's concerned, I think that's definitely going to be tied to kind of the work ethic that the head coach is going to bring to the table as well. That will have to be paired up hand in hand. So,
Yep.
gentlemen, we're just a little bit over, which is crazy to even talk about. Any last topics you want to get to before we get out of here? And I'll throw Jody up on the screen before we jump on out.
I was just gonna say, by Tuesday next week, do you think everyone make a prediction? Do we have a coach? If so, who?
All right, we'll go to Albert first. Albert, by next Tuesday, do we have our next head coach?
I think so. I think we will have one. I'm not sure who it is going to be, but I think we will have a head coach. Then I have another question for you guys. Predictions for the next 2 games. Who's going to win? Who will we see in the Super Bowl?
All right, so now I got 2 questions going to me and 2 questions to go into Jody, I guess, or at least one. Yeah, because we didn't hear Jody's answer on this either. So who do we like in the next games? I'll go there first. Cincinnati, I think, is just going to be too much. They've been too surgical. They've owned Kansas City, quite honestly, which is not something a lot of teams can say. Light their draw.
Definitely not us.
Well said. Touche. Definitely not us. But not very many teams can say that. I'm going to stick with them because, quite honestly, like I said, I was a doubter at the beginning of the year, and they've given me no reason to, beyond the first couple of games, I thought I was like, a prediction god because they struggled out of the gate. But ever since then, they've been on a tear. So Cincinnati for me and Philadelphia. And by next Tuesday, Jody, I certainly hope so. I was hoping that we would be on here talking about our head coach right now. I was hoping that we could maybe wrap it up. Maybe I was thinking like in terms of the Hackett timeline, but I was hoping we'd have it all wrapped up and we'd be talking this week about it. So my guess is if it doesn't get done by Friday, we should be hearing something by Monday. And, at that point, we've had the whole weekend. So, yeah, I want to be on here talking about our new head coach and getting prepped for the Senior Bowl. That's my next thing. So, over to you, Jody. Games you're most excited about and, your timeline. What are you thinking?
I'll piggyback. I'll agree. Cincinnati. Joe Burrows is the real deal. He, if not, is the best quarterback in the NFL. He's a top 2 quarterback. And the Mahomes injury, that's going to be big, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll pick Cincinnati in that game. And then Philadelphia or San Francisco, excuse me. They're rolling. They have an elite defense. Brock Purdy's playing lights out football right now. That's going to be a heck of a game. I would like to see Philly win. That gives us a little bit of draft pick, but I think you're going to have a Cincinnati-San Francisco Super Bowl. And next Tuesday, I have my gut says probably not. Only I think it because I think they're leaning. I'm off the Sean Payton bandwagon, so
I know where you're going.
I think that this is if they're sold on DeMeco Ryans, it's you can't interview him now till after the Super Bowl if they win. So, and if they want someone or Shaw, I guess they could. That could be. I think it's down to those 3 really: Payton, Shaw, or DeMeco Ryans. Because I haven't heard anything really on Quinn. Nothing has been leaked. Nothing on his staff. I mean, you're hearing rumblings on other guys. He's been the one that's been the most quiet, and so yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at. I don't think you're going to hear anything. If Payton wanted this job, it'd be done. But
Yeah.
the more he's playing games, he's not. Obviously, the money doesn't matter. So there's other factors that I don't like. It's my way or nothing. Then peace out. I mean, meet in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, got to get to David Slade. David Slade jumping in the comments for the first time. David missed our great sponsorship that we were talking about. We were talking about Albert's fantastic ribs a little bit earlier. Albert, what rub did you put on those ribs? Do you remember? Oh, I don't think we have any audio from you, buddy.
Sorry.
There.
I used both Sweet Heat and the what is it? The other one.
Sweet Heat
grief.
is always a good one. Good.
Yeah, I have two of them, and I used both of them, and they both turned really well. Sweet Heat and
it'll come to him. It'll come to him. But
Yep.
David Slade is coming in saying, not if San Francisco wins, Ryans is the target. I think kind of piggybacking off what Jody was kind of talking about. Again, we're in this position of kind of waiting now for D'Amico Ryans to be available as he continues to win and can't be interviewed. So David Slade saying, I saw those. They looked amazing. It looked amazing. And then Albert had his aha moment as David Slade came in with
Sweet Heat and Sweet Smoke.
there you go, buddy. Double those up, man. That's a nice little. I haven't put that mix together. We've been doing the one rub. We have ribs that we prepare all the time, so we've been doing one rub at a time. We'll have to double them up on some of these. So, WillowSeasonings.com. Willow Seasonings and Blends is the company. Fantastic rubs all up and down the Rocky Mountain, Colorado front. Check them out. They're in a lot of different stores. I believe you can check them out where they're at just by going to WillowSeasonings.com, or hey, just order them right online. Have them shipped to your door. Start shaking them on as quickly as UPS can get them to you. So, fantastic rubs and seasonings, and a fantastic sponsor as well. Appreciate you coming in here, Dave. It would be, D'Amico Ryans, as Albert came in here and said, it's been really super quiet, man. It could be the guy. It could be the reason we haven't gotten a decision yet. It could be a reason that they're out doing a little hunting trip, the Walton Penner group. So, David Slade just jumping in with a little hint. He says, try that high elevation as a base and a heavy layer of the Memphis style rub that he has as well. So that high elevation SPG, that's my favorite. So I'll pair it up with that Memphis rub. Give it a shot, man. I like that, man. So appreciate it, gentlemen. A great show again tonight. Appreciate everyone jumping in. We had new people coming in. We had Clayton that came in early. We had the Bucket Man Scouting. Appreciate you jumping in here as well. Had to check out what you're all about. Always our good friends over at the K&K Sports Show, which is either Kenny or Kurt, or even one of our last comments, which I believe sounds like it's Sis. 49ers Cowboys game was his favorite game. It was a defensive battle. It was good to see. For those guys who'd like that defensive battle, it was a game, man. It was an absolute game. So appreciate all the guys that came in here. Appreciate all our likers, sharers, subscribers. Unless you guys have anything more, I think we're going to get out of here, gentlemen. Anything for all our fans before we get out?
Let's go Bengals.
Let's go Bengals, man, on the Broncos show. We can tell who's pulling for who. If that's the case, I'm going for the Philly to take it all the way. Your all the way prediction, Jody, do you have one?
Cincinnati, I think.
Bengals as well. Well, hey, again, thank you, everybody, for joining us. Remember, every Tuesday night, we're right here, Denver Bronco Roundup. Hopefully next week. Jody's not too sure, but we'll be talking about, if nothing else, the coaching search has continued. Hopefully we'll be talking about the coach that we have in the building. We'll also have to start getting geared up for a lot of these other off-season activities, guys. Senior Bowl's right around the corner, so we'll be getting geared up for that. Free agency, again, we talked a little bit about it this week, or on this show, but we'll be getting geared up for that. And then, of course, the NFL draft as well. So lots and lots and lots going on. Make sure to check us out. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We're out of here. A little mile-high salute from me. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.